They dragged me out of my own wedding. The groom was already running after me. They grabbed my arm in front of 300 people. Noah's two cousins, big men in expensive suits, came up to me as if I were a problem, as if I weren't a bride standing at the entrance of her own wedding reception. One leaned down and whispered, "Mrs. Calloway wants you to leave. Now. Quietly. Don't make a fuss." I looked at the crowd behind them. 300 guests. Crystal chandeliers. White roses everywhere. A 5-tiered cake that had taken 3 weeks to design. And Noah, my Noah, stood 30 meters away, watching. He wasn't moving. Not yet. But what was to come? No one in that room could have predicted. I had been preparing for this moment for weeks, and I was ready. More than ready. I was waiting for the right moment to set everything in motion, and that moment was almost here. But let me take you back to the past, because you need to understand who I am before you understand what I do. Hi everyone, my name is Scarlett, and I spent my adulthood as if I didn't exist, as if I were invisible, but not sadly, but by choice. My father, Richard Harmon, yes, Richard Harmon, whose name is on 3 hospital wings and 2 university buildings on the East Coast. My family has been in the American finance industry for 4 generations. Old money. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. When I was 22, I watched my cousin Lily get engaged to a man who proposed to her the week she learned about our family's wealth. I saw the calculation in his eyes at the engagement dinner. Lily finally saw it too. 2 years and after an ugly divorce, she completely lost faith in love. I was absolutely against that happening. That's why I stepped out of my own life and started another. I got a job as a middle school art teacher in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio. I drove a used Honda Civic. I rented a small house with a friend. I wore clothes I bought at Target and brought lunch from home. I became Scarlett Hayes. Just Scarlett. No last name, no inheritance, no fortune. For 3 years, I had never felt so free. That's where I met Noah. I couldn't have predicted where our relationship would go after 3 years. Every Sunday morning, he walked into the coffee shop where I sorted through my papers, with a new box of art supplies he'd bought for his niece. He spilled my coffee while reaching for a napkin, apologized 7 times in 40 seconds, and then spent 20 minutes helping me dry my papers with the hand dryer in the bathroom. Yes, it sounds like a movie, but it all happened. He was so ashamed of what he'd done. But despite everything, he was so sincere. That was Noah's thing. He was genuinely kind in a rare way. He volunteered at a food bank on Thursday nights. He remembered everyone's birthday. He called his grandmother every Sunday. How could such a good man be like that? I was slowly falling in love with him, in a sweet way, like falling asleep. We dated for a year before he proposed. He bought a ring with the money he'd saved while we were making pasta together on a Tuesday evening. He proposed there. It was a huge surprise for me, and I loved it. He just looked at me from across the kitchen counter and said, "I can't imagine my life without you." I said yes before he finished his sentence, but others had plans for our future. Diana Calloway, Noah's mother, was everything I grew up with and deliberately distanced myself from. Everything was designer goods, platinum credit cards. She ran the Calloway family like generals command armies, with strategy, knowledge, and ruthlessness. From the moment Noah introduced us, Diana looked at me like people look at the weather. At our first dinner, she said, "A teacher," holding the word in her mouth as if deciding whether to swallow it or not. How sweet. That evening alone, she asked me many questions about my family. Of course, I didn't tell her everything. Each time I gave her the same answer. "We're from the East Coast. We're very close. We have a pretty private life." And I stopped. But it was clear she was memorizing all the information. The comments started in just the second month. Noah has always been interested in projects, she said to her friend while I stood 2 steps away. It's very brave to come to an event like this wearing something like that, she said, referring to a perfectly normal dress. I want the best for my son. I'm sure you understand, she said, looking directly at me with a smile that expressed the complete opposite of understanding. Noah would tell me I misunderstood him. Just protective, he'd say. Well-meaning. I believed him because I loved him. But as time went on, his interest in me waned. It wouldn't have if he knew what was coming. He started researching things. Financial compatibility in marriage, and the importance of shared social background. He introduced me to a woman named Claire at a charity event, loudly proclaiming that Claire's family had real roots in their community. 3 weeks before our wedding, Noah started distancing himself. He became withdrawn. He automatically stopped holding my hand. He forgot the plans we'd made. Even when he sat next to me, he was somewhere else. I asked him what was wrong. Nothing, I'm just stressed about the wedding, he said. It was obvious he was lying. I'm telling you this so you're prepared for everything to change. And as everything drew near, a week before the wedding, I came home early from school. I found Diana sitting in our living room. Noah wasn't there. He had a key. He'd come in on his own. He was sitting on the couch, looking quite calm. His legs were crossed. She stood there, her hands clasped in her lap, waiting. Sit down, Scarlett, she said. Something in her voice sent shivers down my spine. I sat down. I'll be honest with you, she said. I've investigated your past. Scarlett Hayes didn't exist until 7 years ago. No family records, no property history, nothing. So I kept a better one. She paused. And that didn't find anything either. That shows me you're hiding something. People don't disappear so cleanly unless there's a reason. She leaned forward towards me and began to speak to me. I don't know what you're hiding, but I know you're not who you say you are. And I won't let my son marry someone with secrets. Her voice lowered. Go. Get away before this wedding. I'll compensate you financially. I'll be generous. But if you don't go, I promise you, I will find out the truth. And when I do, I will use it to destroy everything you're trying to build. Yes, she was openly declaring her hostility towards me. I stared at her for a long time. Then I said, Thank you for being so straightforward, Diana. She smiled at me contentedly. I'm leaving, I said and stood up. I walked to the bedroom, closed the door and sat on the edge of the bed. She was trembling, not from fear, but from excitement. Because what Diana and everyone else didn't know was that I was already prepared for exactly this. Not especially for her, but for the moment when someone tried to take something from me by using my own secret truth as a weapon. I had been planning for weeks. Every piece was already in place, and I was more ready than ever to use it. So ready. The wedding was 6 days away. I woke up at 5 a.m. on the morning of the wedding, not from nervousness. I think I was just excited. I sat on the edge of the bed in the silent room and checked once more to make sure everything was ready. Every phone call I made, every conversation, every document. Those people I had silently placed, people Diana didn't even know existed in my life. For the past 3 weeks, I'd been placing them like chess pieces, and today was the day the board would finally take center stage. I put on my dress alone. There were no bridesmaids bustling around me, no photos to be taken while I got ready. Just me, the mirror, and the self I'd protected for 7 years. I stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. Okay, Scarlett, I said quietly. Let's get this over with. The venue was everything Diana had planned, and she had planned everything. It was one of her powerful moves. From the moment Noah proposed, she'd been interfering in every detail of the wedding. Noah had allowed it because he thought it made him happy. There were exactly 500 white roses, a string quartet, a guest list that read like a Forbes index, every name carefully chosen to impress the right people. It was too much effort for a night that would be wasted. What Diana didn't know, and what was about to cause quite a stir, were the names I'd added to the guest list. But before that, there was something I had to do. I found the two people I was looking for in the corner of the reception hall, a man named Gerald, who handles my family's legal affairs, and a woman named Patricia, the most respected financial journalist on the East Coast. Both were going to act like ordinary guests. Both knew exactly why they were there. "Everything's ready," Gerald said quietly when he saw me. "Good," I said. "Wait until the ceremony begins." He nodded once. I went towards the bridal waiting room. I sat down and waited for what would happen. 12 minutes later, the door opened. Diana. Of course. She was wearing a dark navy blue dress, a kind of color that makes a strong impact in photographs, and the expression on her face when she saw me was the most astonishment I'd ever seen. She quickly composed herself. "You're still here," she said. "Yes," I said. "I thought we'd agreed." "We had a conversation," I said. "These aren't the things we talked about." Her expression changed, becoming uglier. Something was happening. The artificial warmth she sometimes displayed completely vanished. What remained was the real Diana. Calculating. Cold. "You're wrong," she said. "Diana," I said slowly, rising to my feet. "I want you to know something before you go into the ceremony." I looked directly at her. "I know you called Noah last month. I know what you told him. That I wasn't good enough. That I was hiding something dangerous. That you deserved better." I paused. "I know he almost canceled the wedding because of you." Her jaw tightened. "And I know that no matter what you did to her, she still chose me. So that means deep down she trusts her own heart more than yours." She opened her mouth. "We must take our seats," I said. "The ceremony is about to begin." I was secretly laughing as I said this, because he who laughs last, laughs best. The ceremony went very well for exactly 12 minutes. That's when Diana stood up. She was acting as if she had no idea what was about to happen. She did everything with the same self-assurance, assuming the room belonged to her. She walked to the front, to a place where everyone could hear, and said loudly, "I'm sorry, but there's something I need to stop." The officiant froze. Noah turned. 300 people fell silent. "This woman," Diana said, pointing at me, "is not who she introduced herself as." "I don't know who she is. But she's been lying to my son ever since the day they met, and I'm not going to stand here and watch my son marry a stranger." The silence in that room was unlike any I'd ever experienced before. Noah looked at me. His face, I can't quite describe it, was shattered. It was as if he was afraid of what I was going to say. At that moment, Diana gestured to her nephews, and they grabbed my arm and started to lead me away. Two large men in expensive suits acted as if I were a problem that needed to be eliminated. People stood up as we passed them. I heard someone say, "What's happening?" I heard Noah say, "Mom, Mom, stop." But he wasn't moving fast enough, and they had already started pulling me towards the side exit, so I let them. Their taking me out was all part of the plan. They were taking me out through the side. The door opened behind us. I could hear the conversations through the walls. Voices, laughter, the sound of chairs, everything. The side exit opened into a corridor. The door closed behind us. I could still hear through the walls. I could hear the chaos, the sounds, the chairs moving, Diana's controlled voice trying to restore order. One of the men said, "Ms. Calloway, you can gather your belongings and—" The hallway door suddenly burst open. Noah. He was breathless, his tie loosened, his face pale with the kind of fear you'd expect. He looked at the two men, then at me. "Let her go," he said. His voice was calm and not a shout. It was a plea. The men looked at each other. Then Noah repeated, "Come on." They finally let go. Noah walked the long hallway in 5 steps and put his hands on my face. "I'm so sorry, darling. I should have stopped her. I knew she would do something." His words melted my heart. I stopped and said, "It's all right. I want you to trust me for the next 10 minutes. Can you do this?" She looked at me in surprise and said, "Yes." I reached for the small bag I was carrying down the hallway and pulled out my phone. I sent a very short message. When we returned to the reception area, Gerald got up from his seat. He walked towards Diana, who was still talking, still checking, still acting, and handed her an envelope. She opened the envelope. Her face changed color. But what was inside the envelope? That was the real issue. The contents of that envelope were the result of 6 weeks of work by my family's legal team. These documents showed that for the past 4 years, Diana Calloway had been silently transferring money from Noah's company, a company she had founded and had no connection to accounts under her control. Small amounts, patient amounts, a kind of financial manipulation that required both access and time.